this is the Boise housing market update for 2026 prices, inventory, and what buyers need to know. So if you're wondering about what's happening in the Boise housing market currently, whether prices are going up or whether prices are going down, is it a good time to buy, or are we still in a seller's market? You're going to want to pay close attention to this update, because this week's numbers tell a very clear story, and it's probably not what you're hearing in the headlines or on social media. So let's break it down. Right now, the Boise real estate market, we're sitting at 1,946 active listings. Of those, we have 1,617 homes pending. So most people look at those numbers and they really don't know what that means. This is where things get interesting. When you take the number of pending listings and divide that by the number of active listings, you get what's called the absorption rate. And this week's absorption rates, we're sitting at about 83%. What does that actually mean for you? 83% absorption rate tells us that homes are still being absorbed by the market very quickly. And in plain English, buyers are still out there. They're active, they're writing offers, and sometimes multiple offers in some scenarios. And this is the part a lot of people get wrong right now. The narrative online is that the market here in Boise is slowing down, or the market's shifting into a buyer's market. But based on the actual data we're seeing, that's not happening yet, okay? At 83%, we're still firmly in a seller's market in Boise, Idaho. Now, is it as competitive as it was during the peak frenzy a few years ago? No, it is not. But it is still a market where well-priced homes are moving quickly. Buyers are competing for desirable properties, usually in the lower price points, but not always. And inventory is not outpacing demand. And so that's the key phrase right here, inventory versus demand. Because the inventory starts to rise faster than demand, that's when we see a true shift into a buyer's market. But right now, demand is still keeping up. Let's talk about what this actually means depending on your situation for you and your family. Okay, so if you're a buyer, and especially if you're moving to Boise from out of state, what you want to consider or understand is that you cannot approach this market like it's soft. The biggest mistake I'm seeing buyers make right now is assuming they have more negotiating power than they actually do. So what does that mean? And what happens is they hesitate, they wait, and then they try to underbid. And then they lose the house they want. And it's very hard to find a house that checks all the boxes. If you're serious about buying in 2026, the strategy matters now more than ever. You need to be ready when the right property hits the market. So now on the flip side, if you're a seller, this is still a strong position to be in. An 83% absorption rate, you still have a fair amount of leverage. But this is important to note that it is not the name your price market that it used to be. Homes that are winning right now are the ones that are priced correctly from day one, not starting high and we can negotiate down. I hear that a lot, right? Presented well and marketed properly. Huge, huge, huge. Marketing is everything. So those are the ones we're seeing going pending quickly. Now, one more thing I want to touch on, because a lot of people are searching Boise housing market 2026. Our price is dropping. The answer is it depends. We're not seeing a major price crash. What we are seeing instead is price stabilization. Okay, some segments, some areas are adjusting more than others. The closer into Boise, it's a little stronger seller's market. In some areas, especially the desirable neighborhoods, we're seeing a solid demand, okay? So again, it comes back to strategy and above all, location. So now zooming out for a second, if you're trying to decide whether now is the right time to buy or sell in Boise, here's reality. This is a data-driven market. You can't rely on national headlines. You can't refer to the national headlines or what your friend says in another state, what they're experiencing. What you need to look at is what's happening here in the Treasure Valley, and week-to-week data is telling us that the market is still moving. And that's exactly why I do these weekly updates, so you can stay ahead of what's actually happening in the market. So whether you're buying or selling, or you're thinking about relocating to Boise, this is the kind of information you need to be making the right decisions. So if you've got a specific question, you want a relocation guide, any tips on the area, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. But for the relocation guide, I'm going to put the link in the description below, and you can feel free to reach out anytime, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. I also like to offer up through the Boise Continuing Education Program. I teach buyer and seller classes. We are in the spring semester. We have 4 classes left, and then June there'll be the summer break. So they're very affordable classes. If you care to look on boiselearns.org is where you can find more information on that. And I would love to see you in class. Other than that, I will see you next week.